This is the Ford F-150 Lightning, and I don't think it would be clickbait to say that this is the most important car in a decade. In fact, for Ford, it's absolutely sacred. This is the best-selling car in America for the past 40 years. In fact, before the pandemic, they were selling 900,000 of these every year. That's about 100 an hour. So when they made this electric, they had big shoes to fill. So is this actually a good truck? Is it a good EV? Are we looking at the best-selling car for the next 40 years? This is the Ford F-150 Lightning, and this is Fully Charged.
Fully Charged Live is coming to California this September 10th and 11th, powered by Electrify America. Get your tickets to the #1 EV and home energy show now.
So the Ford F-150 Lightning, what is it? Well, first and foremost, it's Ford F-150. In fact, Ford has gone to great lengths to not make this look all that different from their gas offering. So then there are some giveaways to the fact that this is electric. The first is this grille. It has this cool textured pattern. Obviously, you don't need cooling for a gas engine. The second thing is this light bar, very common now with EVs, and it runs the entire length of the front and also the back. But there is one dead giveaway. In fact, odds are if someone notices you have an F-150 Lightning, it'll be the first time you do this, opening the frunk. And I think this is the best frunk in the industry. One of the big problems with having a truck is the lack of a trunk, a safe, secure place where you can put your belongings and keep it out of the elements. Well, with this, you now have exactly that. Now, there are a few aero elements to keep the drag coefficient down. One of the big things are these wheels, which you can clearly tell are kind of EV focused. As a result, it cuts to the air a little bit better than their average gas car, giving you better range. It's a Ford F-150. You know this truck, and this is just the best version of it. Coming into the interior, big surprise, it's a Ford F-150. For anybody who's ever been in one of these things, it'll look completely familiar. But let's point out a couple of things that do kind of stand out. First of all, they borrowed the Mach-E style portrait screen with the volume knob right in the middle of the screen, which you might love or not. But interestingly, on the lower spec models of the F-150 Lightning, it's a smaller portrait screen with more physical buttons, and I actually prefer that. I think I'd rather have that than this, but that's a small thing. Other things that are still here, as you'd expect, all the trailer assist features. So Pro Trailer Assist, that has all these sensors and things to help you line up to hitch into your boat or your trailer or whatever else you're hauling around. It's all there. Here's a cool little party trick, again, on every F-150. This entire gear shifter folds flat, allowing you then to have a massive area to get work done. I could imagine getting my laptop and writing and doing other things here. Hey, can I help you?
Or you can have a dog sit on it.
Or you can have your dog sit on it. All right, Mick, we'll see.
I love that.
Especially because there's another 20 amp 110 outlet right up here. So you can power pretty much anything. 12 volt as you'd expect. But yeah, the outlets are absolutely everywhere in this truck. We got USB-C up front, wireless phone charging, and in the back, it's a similar story.
Hello. I know nothing about trucks, which is why I've selflessly decided to let Ricky do all the hard work on this video. But I do know back seats and fitting in them. And let me tell you, room back here. Look at this, perfectly flat floor, acres of legroom, decent amount of headroom, slightly taken away from by that sunroof. And this is a couple of things that I really like. Every outlet ever invented down here, 4 different kinds of power source. I don't own enough electrical devices to make use of every charge port on the interior of this truck. We've even got heated seats back here on this Platinum Edition. And this is another thoughtful F-150 touch that I just love. Under the seats, we've got extra storage. A nice big long bay here to put your planks of wood or other lengthy items. Honestly, I'm not sure any vehicle has excelled in the backseat jack test quite like the F-150 Lightning. It is so nice to come to a country where cars are the correct size.
In terms of noise, vibration, and harshness, this is a really comfortable ride. Most trucks are. There's just so much suspension travel and just isolation from the road that it's really comfortable. Even the road strips to kind of warn you when you're going off the road are barely even noticeable in this thing. And the wind noise is also pretty good. It's not in the highest level of the most luxurious EVs like the EQS, obviously, but this is a fair bit quieter than my Tesla Model 3. It's a fast truck, over 500 horsepower, faster than any other F-150, including the Raptor. So if you push on the pedal and you hear that sound, you might be thinking, oh, is that a big V8? It is not. It is artificially pumped in audio, and it's a setting you can turn off. But I rather like it, and some cars I feel it's very obnoxious how they implement it, but in this truck, I've actually left it on both times I've driven it. And in terms of efficiency, we've had it for the whole week. We've driven to LA and back and all around, and over 600 miles. We've done 2 miles per kilowatt hour. Is that good? Well, my Tesla does about 4, sure, but this is a 3-ton truck. And all things considered, that's pretty good. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. And we have not been driving it slow, let's put it that way. So it's probably pretty safe to say this truck probably wouldn't fit on British roads. But here in the US, if you drive pickup trucks, this is gonna feel really normal. You're high off the ground, there's a lot of body roll. Those are the sorts of things that all pickup trucks have. But if you're an EV enthusiast, an EV driver, this truck is gonna feel bonkers. It's massive. Driving down the road, it's almost like captaining a ship. The body roll is massive. And again, there's no air suspension setting, so you're just on metal springs. And those springs have their work cut out for them, dealing with the F-150's huge weight, much of which comes from the massive battery pack. A battery which is going to require a lot of charging. But is America's charging network up to the challenge? Are there even enough chargers to go around? We spoke to Electrify America, who, by the way, is the title sponsor of the live show in San Diego, which you should totally come to find out.
So I'm sure you have some sort of data on just how busy your chargers are. Based on what you've seen, do you feel that the public charging network in the US is now keeping up with the growing uptake of electric vehicles?
I mean, certainly when we first started, we were ahead of the curve, but now with all these great vehicles that we're seeing, like here, the F150 Lightning, and so many other vehicles coming to market, we see an explosion happening, which is really making many of our stations quite busy now, especially really key corridors and highways. So this is something we monitor very closely. But one of the great things, and one of the things we did early on, was really focus on what do the vehicles coming in the future need? And that's why we focused on ultra fast charging, because consumers want to charge fast and get on their way. And that's why right from the beginning, before any cars existed, we started putting out this infrastructure because we knew this is what consumers need. And the great thing about ultra fast charging is that it charges cars quickly. And so cars can cycle through, so you're not waiting an hour to get your car charged, you're waiting 15, 20 minutes to charge a car, and then you're on your way so the next customer can come online. So that is a real key differentiator and really what's helping propel the electric vehicle market forward.
So that's a really important point, isn't it? Because these chargers are pretty quick. These are 150s, but I think all of your new sites are installing 350 kilowatt chargers. There's only a handful of cars on the road right now that can charge that quickly, like that Ioniq behind us.
Right.
But that's a preemptive move, isn't it? That's in anticipation of the next generation of EVs and what they're going to need.
Absolutely. And so a few things that we really invested in. One was liquid cool cables. So to go to 350 and that high amperage, you have to liquid cool your cables to keep them manageable. So that's something we invested on and helped propel that technology forward and started installing that right away. The other thing we invested in was the high voltage architecture, going all the way up to 1,000 volts so that we can handle the newer vehicles that were coming to market. And now we see many more of that high voltage architecture coming to the vehicles today. And then also, for a lot of cars that are having the 400 volt architecture but still wanted to push the higher amperage to get higher power, we made sure all our equipment was capable of 500 amps so that we're able to meet that requirement. Planning out this infrastructure, you really have to work through what kind of capacity am I going to need for the future, right? Because you don't want to bring in more utility 5 years later. So you got to really work with the utility company, understand what your load profile, understand what the market's doing, and have all that foresight in the planning so you can work right off the bat to bring the right kind of capacity in terms of electrical power to your site right day one, That way you're ready for the future, you're ready to expand, you're ready for that capacity that's needed.
So something I'm conscious of, Rob, is how vast and widely distributed your network of chargers are, which must create a bit of a headache when it comes to maintenance. What does the process for looking after such an enormous network of chargers look like?
We're putting these assets in that are essentially unattended, right? There's no storefront to manage these stations. So customers are coming up and using them, and when they come up and use them, they have to work. And so one of the things we did is in our site design, obviously we built redundancy, right? So we built a lot of chargers in any one spot. So if a handle did break for whatever reason, customers have options. There's more chargers to use, so you're not stranded. The other thing we did is right from the bat, we started working with the equipment manufacturers to understand their design, how the chargers work, and what kind of systems and other information do we need from the chargers to feed into our backend, into our network operations center, so that when we monitor the stations, we can proactively see if there's an issue happening, right? And we can dispatch people where needed. And then in terms of the actual, something happens, we have to go fix something, or we do preventative maintenance, we have a whole staff across the country that we can dispatch, and we manage all the spare parts inventory so we can get parts to the technicians, and these trained technicians go out and fix any issue with the charger. We have an energy storage device located here at this site. We have about 140 sites, and we'll continue to build out. And really what the primary motivator is to help keep the cost of power down, right? So you get charged based on two components, sort of the overall power draw and then the amount of energy you take from the utility. So to kind of keep that power draw to minimum in terms of what the utility sees, that's where the batteries really come into play. It helps take the stress off the grid, and that's very important, right? Especially here in California, where we're switching to more and more renewables. But what the energy storage allows us to do is still be able to deliver the level of service the customer expects during those hours without impacting the grid. And so that's really a lot of the technology we've put into play, is making sure that we can guarantee a certain service to the customer while managing all the impacts and everything else in terms of cost and grid stability on the other side. So lastly, the other piece we put into play is we have a fleet of vehicles with drivers that just roam the entire network. And they visit every station twice a month. And they test every single dispenser to make sure it's operational. If it's not, they make a note of that. And so that gets fed back into our technicians. So we do everything to monitor the network, to be as proactive as possible, to make sure we can get the high degree of reliability. And that's what really makes us one of the most reliable open networks across North America today.
The thing that makes me particularly excited about these chargers is plug and charge functionality, which people that may not know is the ability to do what Tesla owners get to do at Tesla superchargers: arrive, park, plug in the car, and charging just happens. The car communicates with the charger, communicates with your bank, and then you get billed after the fact. Which brands are currently available to do plug and charge with Electrify America?
Yeah, so with plug and charge, we were one of the first ones, or the first one and only one today, that really has the official plug and charge standards-based implementation. We do it with Ford, Porsche, and several other vehicle manufacturers, and little by little more and more OEMs are looking at that technology to implement. And the reason is just that. It makes it super easy. Once the customer sets up their account, they never need to think about taking out a phone or a credit card, and they can just plug in and go. But we made sure we wanted to service everyone, right? And make sure everyone had access to the station. So you don't have to join the Electrify America club. You don't have to join an OEM club. You don't have to join any club. You can just go up and swipe your credit card and pay for a charge just like you would fuel today. So we want to build the most open network that anyone can use so that everyone can drive electric. But more and more adoption of this kind of technology that comes across, then you'll see, wider spread use overall. And with Electrify America being everywhere and anywhere basically in North America, with plug and charge coupled with your vehicle, there's no reason to charge anywhere else. We've got you covered.
Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that's all great and all, but what about the Rivian R1T? Well, we've got one of those as well. Now I want to take a quick minute and break down what I think is the fundamental difference between these two trucks that governs the entire design, capabilities, and everything else. Let's start with the Ford. The Ford is a body-on-frame like almost every other truck, which means that they just took their gas truck and in between the frame, they stuck batteries and they stuck electric motors as well. And that's good and bad. That's how Ford is able to make this truck so affordable. The lowest priced Ford F-150 Lightning is about half the price of a Rivian. Sure, this platinum version is closer to price, but they do start a lot cheaper. So unlike the Ford F-150, the Rivian is a unibody, and that's what allows them to do things like the gear tunnel. Pretty cool. Now, the one thing the Rivian doesn't have is a sail pillar, but they were able to get rid of that, but I suspect that's why the bed is as short as it is, to be able to hold all the loads and handle that weight. The other thing about the Rivian is this is a truck for people who maybe don't always drive trucks. What I mean by that is it's not especially easy to get in and out of. It has one button, tailgate down, but when you're tailgate down, how do you get into the bed? It's actually not that easy. Even for me, it would require quite a bit of work to get up and onto. All right, so here on the Rivian, there are outlets, but these are only 110 and I doubt they're even 20 amp. So the point goes to the Ford when it comes to connectivity in the trunk. But the Rivian does have one thing the Ford doesn't, and that is an air compressor on board. And this is because the car has an air suspension. So you could just tap in right here and run your power tools that are pneumatic right from that port. All because this truck has an air suspension, the Lightning doesn't. Now the F-150 Lightning has all the stuff you would expect if you were a truck guy. Tons and tons of tie downs everywhere on both sides. And the real party trick is right here. Now there's 110 outlets like you might expect, but there's also a 240 volt, 30 amp outlet, which can output over 7,000 watts, which means you can power your entire house or another EV. Tape measure for all your cutting and measurement bits. But then there's this. The same kit they have in all of their trucks to make it really easy to get in and out of. It's the small details like that that make the F-150 very approachable and fit right in for average truck buyers. The bed does only come in one size. There's no 8-foot option, but with the tailgate down and some good ties, I think you'll be able to do everything you could normally do in a truck. So over a 600-mile, one-week adventure with the Ford F-150 Lightning, we've averaged 2 miles per kilowatt hour. And on a 135 kilowatt hour battery pack, that's 270 miles, almost what it's rated to do. Now, if you were driving normal and not like a lunatic like we've been, you'll probably get 2.2, getting you right around 300 miles per charge. Pretty amazing for a truck with this much capability. I think, first of all, it's the best F-150 ever made, full stop. This capability level, the familiarity and the comfort and all the things that it can do just make this the best version of the truck. If Ford could make them by the millions, they would sell every one. The question really will become just how many Ford can make and how long your wait times might be to get one in your garage. But let's hope with all the investments that Ford is making with battery factories here in the US, with SK Innovations and everything else, that they can in fact ramp this thing up and deliver as many as they can make. So there you have it, the Ford F-150 Lightning, the most important car in decades. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and if you have been, thank you for watching.